Sexual assault is a human rights violation. 1 in 6 women have been sexually assaulted in their lifetime, and 1 in 33 men. Now, sexual assault is not always about the sex. Sometimes it can be about the control. And what is the difference between sexual assault and rape?
So sexual assault is kind of more of an umbrella term. I think people use it as. We say sexual violence, which includes sexual assault, right? And rape is a more specific kind of sexual assault. It depends who you ask. Those definitions change depending on what research study or what definition you're looking at. The kind of layman's terms is that sexual assault is any non-consensual sexual contact. So that could be over the clothes, that could be, touching or whatever, but rape is more specifically penetrative. So some body part is going into some other body part. So rape is a kind of sexual assault, I guess you could say. It's like rectangles and squares.
Every few minutes, someone is sexually assaulted in the US. Only 5 to 20% of those sexual assaults are actually reported. People don't report them because they feel threatened or because they don't want to accept it or talk about it. A majority of sexual assault victims are under the age of 30. Being drunk does not equal consent. When someone is too drunk to give consent, it's rape. Silence doesn't mean consent either. If someone is silent, it usually means they are too scared to do or say anything. And just because you've had sex with that person before, doesn't mean you have their consent to do it again. No means no. Is it legal to give your consent if you are intoxicated or on drugs?
So that is a funny question. I think it's pretty complicated because if somebody gets you so drunk that you can't remember, you can't stand up, you don't have any memories, or so intoxicated, it doesn't have to be alcohol, but statistically it's most likely to be alcohol, that is non-consensual sex. It's not that it's illegal to give consent, it's that legally speaking, you are not able to. So even that person should recognize that you're incapacitated or intoxicated.
Many female celebrities have recently come forward about being sexually assaulted by coworkers, directors, news anchors, and more. Harvey Weinstein, Roy Price, and John Besh are just a few of the accused. They used their position of authority to blackmail and threaten to have them fired, to make them have sex with them. One of the organizations that help sexual assault victims is called SOS, or Sexual Violence Services. So, what does your organization do?
So, it's kind of a big question. We do a lot of different stuff. We provide advocacy for victim survivors of sexual violence and their friends, families, and community members.
Okay. And what services do you provide?
So we do direct service advocacy, so that looks a lot of different ways. A lot of what we do is counseling one-to-one. We go with people to make police reports. We help them decide, help them weigh the options and understand the process of what it looks like after you make a police report. We go to court with folks. We have support groups here in the evenings. We do like a community support group. We do a 24-hour hotline, which is open for anybody to call with questions or if they need support. We respond to 3 different hospitals in our area, so if anybody goes to get a sexual assault nurse examination, which is like where you would get a rape kit done, is what they call it, but you might know it as, at Regions Hospital or at St. Joe's or at St. John's in Maplewood, we respond 24 hours a day. So anybody who gets an exam there, one of our advocates is paged out. So we're there and we sit with them and we give them information and we make sure that the exam goes the way they want it to go.
Do you know of any other good organizations that help victims of sexual assault?
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of amazing work that gets done, even just in St. Paul, but there's so much work that gets done in the metro area and in the state of Minnesota. Our sister agency in Hennepin County is the Sexual Violence Center, and they work with Hennepin, Scott, and Carver counties. In St. Paul, there's the Domestic Violence Intervention Project, which is St. Paul Intervention Project, SPIP. And they're just down the way, and they're amazing. They work specifically with domestic violence, whereas we work more broadly with sexual violence. Tons of people, Project Pathfinders. I mean, even within colleges and universities in the area, like, McAllister and Hamlin and Concordia, tons of colleges around here, pretty much all 11 of them in Ramsey County have Title IX coordinators who do prevention work on their campuses. And I could talk for a really long time about all the agencies that we work with, because there's so many people who do really amazing work.
And how can people help prevent future sexual assaults?
I think talk about sex. Talk to your partner. Figure out what makes you comfortable and what makes them comfortable, and that's all the issue is a lot of times, is being open and communicative with your partner, and setting healthy boundaries. That said, also just setting healthy boundaries for yourself in all situations and passing that on to folks and asking for consent before you do things.
And is there anything else you'd like to add, that people might be interested in knowing?
I think there's a lot to say, but we are powered by volunteers, so a lot of our work is done by people who are just interested in helping out. That medical response piece I talked about, where we respond to hospital calls 24/7, all our hotline staffing on the weekends and overnight is pretty much done by volunteers. And so I really encourage folks who are interested, if they've heard anything about Me Too or about sexual violence and they're interested in helping out, getting involved in Minnesota, I encourage them to do the 40-hour training that's required of anyone to be an advocate, and just kind of learn the skills and learn how to talk about sexual violence, and then you can volunteer and kind of help make change in your community.
Just remember, you are not alone. There are people out there who are going through the same thing. If you are a victim of sexual assault, you can call SOS's hotline at 651-266-1000. They will help you figure out what you can do and how to cope with your emotions.